They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I'm here to tell you it tastes even better with a side of $5 million and a view of the Pacific Ocean. My name is Layla Torres, and the day Mrs. Victor Whitmore shoved a black garbage bag into my trembling hands and called me gutter trash, she had no idea that her husband's entire hidden fortune was crumpled inside a dirty sock at the bottom of that very bag. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all started, because the best stories, the ones that matter, they never begin where you think they do. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when I first walked through the iron gates of the Whitmore estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. The maples were just beginning to turn, their leaves catching fire in shades of amber and rust. The house itself looked like something out of a magazine, one of those spreads where everything is cream-colored and perfect and nobody actually lives there. 3 stories of colonial revival architecture, complete with white columns and black shutters that probably cost more than my mother's entire house back in Bridgeport. I was 32 years old, bone-tired, and desperate. The employment agency had called me at 6 that morning. Live-in housekeeper position, the woman had said, her voice clipped and efficient. The Whitmores are very particular. You'll need to be invisible, Layla. Can you do that? I'd been invisible my whole life. What was a little more? Mrs. Whitmore answered the door herself, which should have been my first clue. Rich people don't answer their own doors unless they're checking to see if you're worth the air you breathe. She was tall, blonde, and angular in that way that comes from expensive personal trainers and probably a little pharmaceutical help. Her eyes were the color of steel and just as warm. You're late, she said, though I was 7 minutes early. I apologize, Mrs. Whitmore. The traffic? I don't need excuses. I need competence. She stepped aside, her silk robe whispering against the marble floor. The agency says you have experience with high-end households. Yes, ma'am. I worked for the Harrisons in Darien for 3 years, and before that. I don't care about your resume. I care about whether you can follow instructions. She led me through a foyer that could have swallowed my entire apartment, past a staircase that curved like a swan's neck, into a kitchen that belonged in a restaurant. Everything was white marble and stainless steel, so clean it hurt to look at. Your room is in the West Wing, 3rd floor. You'll have Sunday afternoons off. No visitors, no phone calls during working hours, and absolutely no interaction with Mr. Whitmore beyond basic courtesies. Are we clear? That last part. That's what I should have paid attention to. Crystal clear, ma'am. She handed me a typed list, 3 pages long. My duties included everything from hand-washing her delicates to organizing her walk-in closet by color and season. At the bottom, in bold, discretion is not optional. It is mandatory. I met Victor Whitmore that same evening. He came home just after 6, his tie loosened, his dark hair slightly mussed. He was handsome in that aging well way some men have, probably mid-50s, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than his wife did. When he saw me in the dining room, setting the table for their dinner, he actually looked surprised. Oh. Hello. You must be the new housekeeper. Yes, sir. Layla Torres. He smiled, and it reached his eyes. Victor Whitmore. Welcome to the madhouse. He glanced toward the kitchen, where his wife was barking orders into her phone, then back at me. Don't let Berna scare you. Her bark is worse than her bite. I nodded politely, but I'd already seen enough to know that wasn't true. Berna Whitmore's bite was exactly as bad as her bark, maybe worse. That first month, I learned the rhythms of the house. Berna rose at 5 for hot yoga in the home gym, then spent her mornings on phone calls that always seemed to involve other people's money. She ran a boutique investment firm from the study, and from what I could gather, she was very good at it. Victor left for his office downtown by 7 and rarely returned before dark. He was something in commercial real estate, though I got the impression it was Berna's money that had built the empire. I was good at my job. Better than good. I anticipated needs before they were spoken, moved through rooms like smoke, kept everything perfect. And slowly, carefully, I started to listen. Rich people forget that help has ears. I learned that Berna controlled everything, from the household accounts to Victor's wardrobe choices. I learned that she called him Vic in public but you idiot when they were alone. I learned that he slept in a separate bedroom down the hall, and that she kept a locked file cabinet in her study that even he wasn't allowed to access. I also learned that Victor Whitmore was lonely. It started small. He'd linger in the kitchen while I prepared breakfast, making conversation about the weather or asking about my day. He'd thank me for small things, like remembering he preferred his coffee black. Once, when Berna humiliated him at dinner for forgetting their anniversary, he caught my eye across the room, and I saw something there. Shame. Frustration. A silent plea for understanding. I should have looked away. By the end of October, the dynamic had shifted. Victor started coming home earlier, always with some excuse. Forgot my reading glasses. Left some documents in my office. But he'd always end up in whatever room I was in, talking. He told me about his early years, how he'd built his first property development from nothing, how Berna had been different then, ambitious but not cruel. How somewhere along the way, she'd started treating him like another asset to manage. "She doesn't see me anymore," he said one evening. I was folding laundry in the upstairs hall, and he'd appeared like a ghost, whiskey glass in hand. "I'm just a name on her business cards." Victor Whitmore, husband of Berna Whitmore, the real brains of the operation. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitmore," I said carefully. "That must be difficult. You're the only person in this house who treats me like a human being, Layla. Do you know that?" I did know that. I'd been counting on it. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not ashamed either. You play the hand you're dealt, and I'd been dealt nothing but bad cards my whole life. Victor Whitmore was my chance to reshuffle the deck. It happened on a Thursday night in November. Berna had flown to Boston for a business conference, some sort of real estate summit that would keep her gone for 3 days. Victor had been drinking since dinner, and when I brought him a fresh bottle of scotch at his request, he didn't just thank me. He looked at me. Really looked at me, like I was more than furniture. "Do you ever feel invisible, Layla?" I set the bottle down carefully. "Every day of my life, Mr. Whitmore." "Victor. Please. When Berna's not here, you can call me Victor." "All right. Victor." He poured 2 glasses, offered me one. I hesitated only a moment before taking it. We drank in silence, standing in his home office, surrounded by his wife's achievements. Her degrees on the wall, her awards on the shelves, her name on every piece of correspondence. "She's erased me," he said quietly. 23 years of marriage, and I've disappeared." I moved closer. "You're not invisible to me." That's all it took. One sentence, delivered with just enough warmth, just enough suggestion. Victor Whitmore was starving for validation, and I had an endless supply. He kissed me first, but I'd orchestrated it. Every word, every glance, every moment of understanding I'd offered over the past weeks had led to this. When we ended up in his bedroom, The one with the California king and the Egyptian cotton sheets that I washed every Tuesday. I told myself it was just business. But somewhere in the dark, with his arms around me and his whispered promises filling the air, a small part of me wondered if I was making a terrible mistake. By morning, he was different. Lighter. He made coffee, something I'd never seen him do. He smiled at me across the kitchen island and said things like, "This can't be just once, and you've reminded me what it feels like to be alive." I played my part perfectly. Wide-eyed wonder. Gentle affection. The suggestion that maybe, possibly, I felt the same way. "Berna can't know," he said, suddenly serious. "She'd destroy us both. She'd destroy you especially. You understand that, right?" I nodded. "Of course. This stays between us." "I mean it, Layla. She's ruthless." If she even suspected, he stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Just be careful. Be smart." Oh, I was planning to be. Over the next 2 months, as autumn turned to winter and the first snow dusted the grounds of the Whitmore estate, Victor and I fell into a pattern. When Berna traveled, which was often, we'd spend the nights together. When she was home, I was the invisible housekeeper again, and he was the dutiful husband. But in those stolen hours, he talked. God, did he talk? He told me about the offshore accounts Berna didn't know existed. The cryptocurrency investments he'd made with his own inheritance, the one thing she couldn't touch because it predated their marriage. He told me about the lawyers he'd consulted, the divorce he was too afraid to file, the prenup that would leave him with almost nothing if he left. "She'd take everything," he said one December night, snow falling outside the window. "The house, the company, my reputation. She's documented every mistake I've ever made. She's built a case against me over 2 decades, just in case." Why would she do that? Control. Insurance. Because she can. He pulled me closer. "But I've been preparing too. I've been moving money where she can't find it. Building my own exit strategy. It's taken years, but I'm almost ready." Ready for what? He looked at me with something that might have been hope or might have been delusion. To leave. To start over. Maybe with you? I made my eyes soft. Really? Why not? You're kind, you're beautiful, you understand me. We could go somewhere Berna's money and connections don't reach. South America, maybe. Southeast Asia. I've got enough hidden away to keep us comfortable for the rest of our lives. $5 million, I'd learn later. That's what he'd hidden away in cryptocurrency wallets and offshore accounts. $5 million that Berna Whitmore, with all her financial genius, had never found. I kissed him to hide my expression. That sounds like a dream. It could be real. Soon. I just need to be smart about the timing. January came, and with it a cold snap that froze the pond on the property and turned the world outside into something crystalline and dead. Inside the house, the temperature was dropping too. Berna had noticed something. She didn't know what, not yet, but she'd started watching. I'd catch her staring at Victor during dinner, her eyes calculating. She'd appear in rooms unexpectedly, silent as smoke. She'd started asking me odd questions. "How is Mr. Whitmore's mood lately, Layla?" "Fine, ma'am. Same as always." "Does he ever speak to you? About anything?" "Just pleasantries, ma'am. Good morning, thank you, things like that." Her eyes narrowed. "If that changes, you'll tell me immediately." "Understood?" "Of course, Mrs. Whitmore." I should have been more careful. Victor should have been more careful. But people in the grip of something that feels like love rarely are. It was his phone that betrayed us. He'd been texting me from his personal cell, nothing explicit but enough. Thinking of you. Can't wait for Friday. You make everything better. He thought he'd been discreet, but he'd forgotten to delete the messages, and he'd left his phone on the bathroom counter while he showered. Layla Whitmore found it on a Tuesday morning in late January. I was in the kitchen when I heard the scream. Not of fear. Of rage. I rushed toward the sound, my heart hammering, and found them in the master bedroom. Layla had the phone in her hand, her face white with fury. Victor stood there in his towel, water still dripping from his hair, looking like a man watching his execution. Who is she? Layla's voice was ice. Who the hell is Elle? Layla, I can explain. Is it someone from your office? One of my friends? Who? Then her eyes landed on me, standing frozen in the doorway. Something clicked into place behind her gaze. You, she whispered. The housekeeper. You've been fucking the housekeeper. Victor's face confirmed everything. He didn't even try to deny it. What happened next was methodical. Layla Whitmore didn't yell or cry or throw things. She simply made decisions, each one delivered like a verdict. Victor, you're pathetic. We'll discuss your punishment after I deal with the trash. She turned to me. Upstairs. Pack your things. You have 5 minutes. Mrs. Whitmore, 5 minutes, or I call the police and report you for theft. I'm sure I can find something missing around here. I ran upstairs, my mind racing. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Victor was supposed to stand up for me, to defend me, to show some spine. Instead, I could hear him downstairs, his voice muffled but desperate. Layla, please, it wasn't her fault. I was weak, I was lonely, she didn't mean anything. She didn't mean anything. Those 4 words. That's when something inside me froze solid. I threw my clothes into that black garbage bag Layla had shoved at me. My toothbrush. My photos. My life reduced to trash. And then I remembered. 3 days ago, Victor had given me a small silver USB drive. If anything happens, he'd said, if Layla files for divorce or tries to take everything, this is my insurance. Passwords, account numbers, everything I've hidden from her. Keep it safe for me. You're the only person I trust. I'd hidden it in my room, wrapped in an old sock at the back of my drawer. Now I grabbed it, shoved it deep into the garbage bag, and went back downstairs. They were waiting for me at the front door. Layla, arms crossed. Victor, head down, avoiding my eyes. Out, Layla said. If I ever see you near this property again, I'll ruin you. Do you understand? I looked at Victor. Really looked at him. Waiting for him to say something, anything. To be the man he'd pretended to be in the dark. He said nothing. Victor? I whispered. He finally raised his eyes. I'm sorry, Layla. This was a mistake. You should go. Layla smiled. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. That's right. Run along, gutter trash. And consider yourself lucky I'm not pressing charges. She slammed the door in my face. I stood there in the January cold, clutching my garbage bag, my breath making clouds in the frozen air. Behind me, I could hear Layla's voice, sharp and clear through the door. Now, Victor. Let's discuss how you're going to make this right. I walked down that perfect driveway, past the manicured hedges and the frozen fountain, carrying everything I owned in a trash bag. But I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry yet. I was thinking about that USB drive, and all the secrets inside it. And I was smiling. The Starlight Motel on Route 1 was the kind of place where people went to disappear. $40 a night, cash only, no questions asked. The carpet was a nauseating pattern of brown and orange, the bedspread smelled like cigarette smoke and regret, and the bathroom mirror had a crack running through it like a lightning bolt. It was perfect. I set my garbage bag on the sagging mattress and stared at it for a long moment. Everything I owned, reduced to this. My clothes, my toiletries, my life, all stuffed into black plastic like actual trash. Berna Whitmore's final insult, the physical manifestation of exactly what she thought I was worth. But buried at the bottom, wrapped in a sock that had seen better days, was something she didn't know about. My hands were shaking as I pulled out the USB drive. It was so small, barely bigger than my thumb, silver metal with Victor's initials engraved on one side, VHW. Victor Henry Whitmore. He'd given it to me 3 nights ago, in the darkness of his bedroom, after we'd made love and he'd had too much whiskey. "This is everything," he'd whispered, pressing it into my palm. "Everything Berna doesn't know about. If something happens, if she finds out about us, if she tries to destroy me, this is my nuclear option. But I can't keep it in the house. She's too smart. She'll find it eventually. Why give it to me?" He'd kissed my forehead, and I'd let myself believe it meant something. "Because you're the only person in the world I trust. Because you're not like her. You're not hungry for power or control. You're just good. Good." That's what he'd called me. Good little Layla, too naive and grateful to ever betray him. I'd wanted to laugh. I'd wanted to cry. Instead, I'd kissed him back and promised to keep it safe. Now, sitting in this motel room that smelled like failure, I plugged the USB drive into my laptop, a 6-year-old Dell that was held together with hope and duct tape. The drive opened immediately. No password, no encryption. Victor had been so confident in my loyalty that he hadn't bothered to protect it. There were 3 folders: financial, legal, and insurance. I opened financial first. What I saw made my breath catch in my throat. Spreadsheets. Dozens of them. Account numbers, passwords, cryptocurrency wallet addresses. Bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Singapore. Investment portfolios I didn't fully understand but could tell were worth significant money. And at the bottom of the main spreadsheet, in bold red letters, total liquid assets, $5,247,893.67. $5 million. Victor Whitmore had hidden $5 million from his wife. But that wasn't all. As I scrolled through the documents, a picture began to emerge. This wasn't just Victor's inheritance money, carefully moved offshore over the years. Some of this money, maybe half of it, had been siphoned from the Whitmore Real Estate Holdings, the company that Berna ran with an iron fist. He'd been stealing from her. The legal folder was even more interesting. Prenuptial agreement. Divorce consultation notes. Email exchanges with lawyers discussing asset protection strategies and spousal liability shields. Victor had been planning his exit for years, methodically moving money where Berna couldn't touch it, building his escape route one transaction at a time. And then there was the insurance folder. I opened it, expecting more financial documents. Instead, I found something that made my blood run cold. Photos. Dozens of photos of Berna with another man. Not Victor. Someone younger, darker-haired, handsome in an obvious way. The photos were time-stamped, going back 3 years. They were in restaurants, in hotel lobbies, in what looked like the man's apartment. In some of them, they were kissing. In others, they were just talking, but the intimacy was obvious. There were also bank records showing large transfers from Berna's personal accounts to an LLC I didn't recognize. Phone records showing hundreds of calls between Berna's private cell and a number marked simply as Jair. Text message screenshots, not explicit but suggestive, miss you. Can't wait for next week. He suspects nothing. Berna Whitmore had been having an affair. And Victor had known about it, documented it, and kept it as insurance. I sat back, my mind racing. This wasn't just a cheating husband's insurance policy. This was mutually assured destruction. They'd been circling each other for years, both of them preparing for war, both of them keeping weapons they hoped they'd never have to use. And I was sitting in a $40 motel room with the detonator. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Layla. Victor's voice, tight with panic. Thank God. Where are you? Somewhere safe from your wife. Listen, we need to talk. About that thing I gave you. The drive. I need it back. Do you? A pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something colder. Don't play games, Layla. That's my property. I want it back. Today. Your property, I repeated slowly. Like I was your property? Something to use and throw away when it became inconvenient? That's not fair. Berna caught us. What was I supposed to do? Defend me. Stand by me. Do any of the things you promised you'd do when you were lying in bed telling me I was the only person you trusted? I said I was sorry. Look, I'll make it right. I'll give you money, help you find a new job, whatever you need. But I need that drive back. Berna's going nuclear. She's freezing accounts, calling lawyers. If I don't have that leverage, you'll what? End up with nothing? Be destroyed? Feel what it's like to be treated like trash. My voice was steady, calm. Inside, I was burning. Here's what's going to happen, Victor. I'm going to hang up now. And you're going to leave me alone. Layla, I'm warning you. No, I interrupted. I'm warning you. Do not contact me again. Do not try to find me. Because if you do, I'll send everything on this drive to Berna. And then I'll send it to the IRS, the SEC, and anyone else who might be interested in where your money really came from. You wouldn't. Try me. I hung up. Blocked his number. And then I sat there, staring at my laptop screen, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. What was I doing? I'd just threatened a rich, powerful man. A man who knew people, who had resources. A man who could destroy me with a phone call. But as I looked at those account numbers, those passwords, that $5 million just sitting there waiting to be claimed, something crystallized inside me. Victor Whitmore had used me. He'd seen a lonely, desperate housekeeper and turned her into his safety deposit box. He'd made promises he never intended to keep, told me I was special when I was really just convenient. And when his wife caught us, he hadn't hesitated for a second before throwing me away. He'd counted on me being too scared, too grateful, too good to ever betray him. He'd been wrong. I opened a new browser window and started researching. International money transfers. Cryptocurrency exchanges. How to move money without leaving a trail. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was a fast learner. I'd spent my whole life figuring out how to survive in worlds that didn't want me. This was just another skill to master. It took 3 days. 3 days of research, of trial and error, of buying burner phones and setting up anonymous email accounts. 3 days of teaching myself the basics of cryptocurrency and offshore banking. 3 days of making myself into someone new. On the 4th day, I walked into a small office in Stamford that advertised international financial services in 3 languages. The man behind the desk was Middle Eastern, probably Lebanese, with kind eyes and the sort of discretion that came from years of not asking questions. "I need help transferring some assets," I said. He looked at me, really looked at me, taking in my cheap clothes and my worn purse and the desperation I was probably radiating. "What kind of assets?" "Cryptocurrency." "A significant amount." His eyebrows rose slightly. "How significant?" $5 million, give or take. To his credit, he didn't laugh or call security. He just nodded slowly and gestured to a chair. "Have a seat. This will take some time." His name was Rashid, and he was a miracle worker. He didn't ask where the money came from. He didn't question whether it was mine. He just did what I paid him to do, help me move Victor's carefully hidden fortune into accounts that Victor couldn't access. "The cryptocurrency is the easiest," Rashid explained, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "We'll transfer it to a new wallet, change all the passwords and recovery phrases. The offshore accounts are trickier. We'll need to create new entities, new beneficial owners. But it can be done." "How long?" "If you're willing to pay the express fees?" 24 hours. It cost me $2,000, money I didn't really have, charged to a credit card that was already maxed out. But it was an investment. The best investment I'd ever make. That night, back in my motel room, I watched the numbers move. Account by account, wallet by wallet, Victor's hidden fortune became mine. Every time a transfer completed, every time a password changed, I felt a little stronger. A little less invisible. At 3:47 a.m., Rashid sent me an encrypted message, complete. "You are now a very wealthy woman. Use it wisely." I stared at my laptop screen, at the balances that now showed under my new accounts. $5,200,000. More money than I'd ever imagined having. More money than I could spend in a lifetime if I was careful. Money that Victor Whitmore had spent years hiding from his wife. Money that was now mine. I should have felt guilty. I should have felt like a thief. Instead, I felt something else entirely, powerful. But I wasn't done yet. Victor had kept insurance on Berna. Now it was time to use it. I composed an email. Anonymous, sent from a burner account that couldn't be traced back to me. The recipient, Berna Whitmore, at her personal email address that I'd seen on enough correspondence to have memorized. "Dear Mrs. Whitmore. You don't know me, but I know you. I know about your husband's offshore accounts. I know about the money he's been stealing from your company. I also know about your 3-year relationship with Jonathan Reeves, and the $780,000 you've transferred to his consulting company over the past 18 months. I'm attaching documentation of all of this. What you choose to do with it is your business. But I thought you should know that your husband isn't the only one who's been keeping secrets. Consider this a gift from someone who understands what it's like to be underestimated. Sincerely, a friend." I attached selected files from Victor's insurance folder, enough to be damaging, but not everything. I wanted chaos, not total destruction. Not yet, anyway. I hit send at 4:15 a.m. By noon, my phone, the burner I'd been using to monitor news and social media, was buzzing with alerts. The Whitmore Real Estate Holdings website was down. Multiple news outlets were reporting that Berna Whitmore had filed for an emergency divorce. The company's stock, which was privately held but still tracked by financial websites, had dropped 15% on rumors of financial impropriety. By evening, the story had exploded. Business reporters were digging into the company's finances. Someone had leaked information about IRS audits and SEC investigations. The Whitmores' perfect life was coming apart in real time, broadcast across financial news networks and business websites. I sat in my motel room, eating Chinese takeout and watching it all unfold. My phone, my real phone, not the burner, rang. Victor again, calling from yet another number. This time, I answered. You destroyed me. His voice was hollow. How could you? I didn't destroy you, Victor. You destroyed yourself. I just opened the door and let everyone see what was already there. The accounts are empty. The cryptocurrency is gone. That was my future, Layla. That was everything. No, I said quietly. That was money you stole and hid. That was your insurance policy, your escape plan, built on lies and theft. It was never really yours to begin with. I trusted you. You used me. There's a difference. Silence on the line. Then, what do you want? Money? I can get money. I have friends, connections. Just give it back. Please. For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. He sounded broken, defeated, nothing like the confident man who'd whispered promises in the dark. But then I remembered the way he'd stood there while his wife called me trash. The way he'd said I didn't mean anything. The way he'd been willing to sacrifice me without a second thought. I don't want anything from you, Victor. I want you to feel what I felt when you threw me away. I want you to understand what it's like to have everything taken from you by someone you trusted. I want you to know that the person you thought was beneath you, the person you used and discarded, was smarter than you all along. You're going to regret this. Berna will come after you. The lawyers will come after you. You can't just steal $5 million and expect. I didn't steal anything, I interrupted. I received a gift from someone who trusted me with his most valuable possession. What I do with that gift is my business. And as for Berna, well, she has her own problems now, doesn't she? Turns out you weren't the only one keeping secrets. I could hear his breathing on the other end, ragged and desperate. Goodbye, Victor. I hope you find whatever you're looking for. But you won't find it by using people who can't fight back. I hung up. Blocked that number too. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I laughed. It started as a chuckle, then built into something bigger, something that felt like it came from a place deep inside me that had been locked away for years. I laughed until tears ran down my face, until my sides hurt, until the people in the neighboring rooms probably thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Or maybe I'd finally found it. The next week was a blur. I checked out of the Starlight Motel and into a decent hotel in Stamford. Nothing fancy, but clean, with a real mattress and towels that didn't feel like sandpaper. I bought new clothes. Not expensive clothes, not yet, but things that fit properly and didn't have holes in them. I got a haircut, a real one, Not the kind I did myself in the bathroom mirror. I started planning. $5 million was a lot of money, but it wouldn't last forever if I was stupid about it. I met with Rashid again, this time to discuss investments. Long-term strategies. How to turn $5 million into $10 million, into enough that I'd never have to worry again. What's your goal? He asked. Retirement? Business? Just security? Freedom, I said. I want to never feel trapped again. He nodded like he understood. Then we'll make sure you don't. The news about the Whitmores continued to develop. Berna had indeed filed for divorce, citing adultery and financial fraud. Victor had countered with his own accusations, using the evidence he still had about her affair and the money she'd moved to her lover. It was ugly, public, and exactly what they both deserved. The IRS had opened an investigation into Whitmore real estate holdings. The SEC was looking into possible securities fraud. Business partners were distancing themselves. The perfect facade they'd maintained for decades was crumbling, and the world was watching. I followed it all from a distance, a ghost in their machine. 2 weeks after I'd sent that email to Berna, I received a message. It came through one of my anonymous accounts, which shouldn't have been possible. Whoever sent it had worked hard to find me. I know who you are. And I know what you did. We should talk. B.W. Berna Whitmore had found me. My first instinct was panic. She had resources, connections, lawyers who could tie me up in court for years. She could prove the money had been Victor's, could argue that I'd stolen it. She could destroy the new life I was trying to build before it even began. But then I read the message again. We should talk. Not I'm coming after you. Not you'll pay for this. Just we should talk. Curious, I responded from the same anonymous account, what do you want? Her reply came within minutes, to say thank you. We met at a coffee shop in New Haven, neutral territory. I got there early, sat in the back with a clear view of the entrance. When Berna Whitmore walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller somehow. Still elegant, still put together in that way rich women always are, but diminished. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore minimal makeup. There were lines around her eyes I'd never noticed before. She spotted me immediately and walked over, no hesitation. Layla. She sat down without asking. Thank you for meeting me. You threatened me. I did. And I meant it, at the time. She ordered a coffee from a passing waitress, then turned back to me. But that was before I understood what you'd done. What do you think I did? A smile, thin and sharp. You took everything from my husband. His secret accounts, his escape plan, his leverage against me. And then you handed me enough evidence to destroy him in the divorce proceedings. Why? I met her eyes. Because he used me. Because he threw me away like I was nothing. Because he deserved it. Yes, she said softly. He did. We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop hummed with conversation around us, students from Yale studying for exams, couples on dates, normal people living normal lives. I'm not going to come after you, Berna finally said. The money you took, it was stolen anyway. From my company, from our partners, from people he defrauded over the years. Legally, it was never his. Which means it's not mine either. And frankly, I don't care. Victor losing his nest egg is worth more to me than the money itself. Then why meet with me? She leaned forward. Because I want you to understand something. I was angry when I caught you with my husband. Furious. I called you trash because in that moment, that's what I needed you to be. But the truth is, you weren't the problem. He was. He's always been the problem. That doesn't excuse what you said. No, it doesn't. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just explaining. She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. Victor has a pattern. You weren't the first. You probably wouldn't have been the last. He finds women who are vulnerable, who need something, and he uses them. Makes them feel special, makes promises he never intends to keep. And when it's over, he discards them and moves on. Something cold settled in my stomach. How many? At least 3 that I know of. Maybe more. He's been doing it our entire marriage. And you stayed with him? Her laugh was bitter. I stayed because of the money, the company, the life we'd built. I stayed because I thought I could control him, manage him like any other asset. I was wrong. Some things can't be managed. Why are you telling me this? Berna took a sip of her coffee, her eyes never leaving mine. Because you did something the others didn't. You fought back. You took power instead of accepting victimhood. And I respect that. Even if I hate how it happened. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the conversation I'd expected. The divorce will be finalized in 6 months, she continued. Victor will walk away with almost nothing. The prenup was ironclad, and with the evidence you provided, along with what I'd already gathered, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. He'll lose the house, his stake in the company, everything. He'll be lucky if he doesn't end up in prison for the fraud charges. Good. Indeed. She stood, preparing to leave. One more thing. That money you took, use it wisely. Don't let it change who you are. Don't become like him. I won't. She nodded, then paused. You know, in another life, another circumstance, I think we might have been friends. You're smart, resourceful, ruthless when you need to be. Those are qualities I admire. In another life, I agreed. But not this one. No, she said quietly. Not this one. She left, and I sat there for a long time, finishing my coffee and processing everything that had happened. Berna Whitmore, the woman who'd called me trash and thrown me out of her house, had just thanked me for destroying her husband. Life was strange. That night, alone in my hotel room, I made a decision. I couldn't stay on the East Coast. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I needed somewhere new, somewhere warm, somewhere I could disappear and become someone else. I booked a flight to Bali. One-way ticket, first class. Because I could. The thing about reinventing yourself is that it's easier than you'd think. People believe what they see, and if you show them someone confident, someone who belongs, they rarely question it. When I landed in Bali 3 weeks after taking Victor Whitmore's fortune, I was no longer Layla Torres, the invisible housekeeper from Bridgeport. I was Layla Mendoza, independent consultant, early retiree, woman of mystery. I'd changed my last name legally before leaving the States, one of many precautions Rashid had suggested. New name, new passport, new life. The villa I rented was in Canggu, a beachside town that had somehow managed to be both laid-back and sophisticated. 3 bedrooms, infinity pool, ocean view. It cost more per month than I used to make in a year, and I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I could afford not to care. The first morning, I woke to the sound of waves and birds I couldn't name. The air smelled like frangipani and salt. I made coffee, real coffee, expensive beans from a local roaster, and sat by the pool watching the sun turn the ocean gold. I was 32 years old, and I was free. But freedom, I was learning, came with its own complications. The first month was easy. I spent my days exploring, eating at restaurants where the menus weren't in English, learning to surf badly, getting used to the feel of money in my pocket. I made friends with other expats, entrepreneurs, digital nomads, trust fund kids playing at bohemian life. They assumed I was one of them, someone with family money or a successful exit from a startup. I didn't correct them. At night, alone in my villa, I'd pull up news articles about the Whitmores. The divorce was proceeding exactly as Berna had predicted. Victor had tried to hide assets, but without his secret accounts, he had nothing left to hide. The IRS investigation had expanded. There were whispers of criminal charges. His lawyer had issued a statement calling him a victim of a sophisticated theft and demanding an investigation into the missing funds. I should have been worried. Instead, I felt nothing. Victor Whitmore was a problem from another lifetime, another world. He couldn't touch me here. But I was wrong about that. It was my second month in Bali when I noticed him. A man, American, mid-40s, always alone. I'd see him at the coffee shop where I worked on my laptop, at the beach club where I sometimes had lunch, at the yoga studio I'd started attending. Always at a distance, never approaching, but always there. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Canggu wasn't that big. You saw the same faces over and over. But then I caught him taking a photo of me at the market, and I knew. I confronted him at the coffee shop, walking straight to his table with my heart pounding but my face calm. "Who are you, and why are you following me?" He looked up, not even pretending to be surprised. He had the weathered face of someone who'd spent too much time in the sun, and eyes that revealed nothing. "Ms. Torres. Or is it Mendoza now? Hard to keep track. I asked you a question." "My name's Tom Bradley. I'm a private investigator. I've been hired to locate you and confirm your identity." He gestured to the empty chair across from him. "Sit. We should talk." Every instinct told me to run. Instead, I sat. Running would only confirm I had something to hide. "Who hired you?" "I think you know. Victor Whitmore." He nodded. "He's very interested in finding you. Something about property that belongs to him. A USB drive. $5 million. I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Look, I don't care about the money or the drama or whatever happened between you two. I'm just here to do a job. I confirm you're here, I report back, I collect my fee. What happens after that is between you and him. And if I ask you not to report back? That's not how this works." I studied him for a moment. He was good at his job, I'd give him that. Patient, thorough, professional. But everyone had a price. "What's he paying you?" $20,000, plus expenses. "I'll give you $50,000 to forget you found me." He laughed. "You're serious?" "Completely. $50,000, transferred to any account you want, today. All you have to do is tell Victor Whitmore you couldn't locate me. Tell him I'm not in Bali, not in Indonesia, that the trail went cold. Tell him whatever you want, but leave me out of it." Bradley leaned back, considering. "You know he'll just hire someone else." "Maybe. But that'll take time. And time is what I'm buying. This could get messy. If he finds out I lied." "He won't. He's too busy fighting with his ex-wife and dodging federal investigators. And even if he does suspect something, what's he going to do? He can't exactly report you to anyone without admitting why he was looking for me in the first place. I could see him calculating, weighing his options. Loyalty to a client versus 50,000 tax-free dollars. It wasn't even close. 60,000, he said. And we never had this conversation. Deal. I transferred the money that afternoon. Bradley left Bali the next morning, and I went back to my life. But the encounter had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. Victor was looking for me. He wasn't going to let this go. And eventually, someone less viable than Tom Bradley would find me. I needed insurance of my own. I called Rashid from a burner phone I'd bought in Denpasar. I need a dead man's switch. Explain. If something happens to me, if I'm arrested, if I disappear, if I stop checking in, I need certain information to be automatically released. Can you set that up? Of course. What kind of information? Everything on Victor Whitmore. The fraud, the tax evasion, the affairs, all of it. And everything on Berna too, just in case. I want it sent to the FBI, the SEC, the IRS, every major news outlet. I want their lives destroyed so thoroughly that they won't have time or resources to come after me. You're talking about a nuclear option. I'm talking about survival. There was a pause. Then, it'll cost you. I don't care. Make it happen. He made it happen. Within a week, I had a system in place. Every Monday and Thursday, I had to log into a secure server and enter a code. If I missed 2 check-ins in a row, the dead man's switch would trigger, and all of Victor and Berna's secrets would flood the internet like a broken dam. It wasn't perfect protection, but it was something. And more importantly, I made sure Victor knew about it. I sent him one final message, from an untraceable account. I know you're looking for me. Stop. I've created a system that will release everything, and I mean everything, if anything happens to me. Bank fraud, tax evasion, the affairs, the money laundering, all of it. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Walk away, Victor. You've already lost. Don't make it worse. I never got a response. But Tom Bradley never came back, and I never saw another investigator. The message had landed. As the months passed, I settled into my new life. I started a small business, a consulting firm that helped expats navigate Indonesian business regulations. It was legitimate, legal, and gave me a reason to be in Bali beyond I stole money and ran away. I hired a local assistant, a sharp young woman named Wayan who knew everyone and could fix anything. I learned Bahasa Indonesia, badly but enthusiastically. I dated a surf instructor for a while, then a photographer, then decided I was happier alone. I made friends with other women, real friends, not the transactional relationships I'd had back in Connecticut. Women who'd also reinvented themselves, who'd come to Bali running from something or searching for something. We didn't ask too many questions about each other's pasts. We just lived in the present, surfing and laughing and drinking wine on the beach at sunset. One of them, Carolyn, was from California originally, a former corporate lawyer who'd burned out and cashed out. We were having lunch one day at a beachfront warung when she asked the question I'd been dreading. So what's your story, Layla? How'd you end up here? I could have lied. I'd gotten good at lying. Instead, I told her a version of the truth. I worked for a wealthy family back in the States. The husband and I got involved. His wife found out, and things got ugly. I had some information about their finances that I probably shouldn't have had. I used it to start over. Carolyn didn't even blink. Good for you. You're not horrified? Why would I be? Rich people screw over working people all the time. Your employer screwed you over first, right? You just returned the favor. She took a sip of her coconut water. Besides, half the people in this town are running from something. At least you're honest about it. That's when I realized something important. I didn't feel guilty anymore. In those first weeks after taking the money, there'd been moments of doubt, moments where I wondered if I was really any better than Victor and Berna. But I was. I hadn't lied or manipulated or used someone's trust against them. I'd just taken what was offered and refused to give it back. The money had been Victor's insurance policy against his wife. He'd given it to me for safekeeping because he trusted me not to betray him. The irony was perfect. He was right to trust me up until the moment he proved he'd never trusted me at all. 6 months after arriving in Bali, I bought the villa I'd been renting. Then I bought 2 more properties, small ghost houses that I renovated and rented to tourists. Rashid had been right about investments. The 5 million was now closer to 6, and it would keep growing if I was smart. I hired staff, all locals, and paid them well above market rate. I sponsored Wei-Yin's younger sister through university. I donated to a local school, anonymously. The money that Victor had stolen and hoarded and used as a weapon, I was putting it back into the world, helping people who needed it. Maybe that was rationalization. Maybe I was just trying to feel better about what I'd done. I didn't care. It felt right. A year after leaving Connecticut, I received a package. No return address, postmarked from New York. Inside was a newspaper clipping and a handwritten note. The clipping was from the business section of the New York Times. Victor Whitmore sentenced to 7 years for fraud. The article detailed his crimes: tax evasion, wire fraud, embezzlement from his own company. It mentioned that most of his assets had been seized, that he'd filed for bankruptcy, that his ex-wife had testified against him in exchange for immunity. The note was from Berna. I recognized her handwriting from the grocery lists she used to leave me. Layla. Thought you'd want to know it's finally over. Victor will be eligible for parole in 5 years if he behaves himself. Knowing him, he won't. The company has been restructured and renamed. I've stepped down as CEO but retain a board seat. My indiscretion with Jonathan cost me professionally, but not as much as it could have. Your information helped, in the end. It proved Victor and I were equally culpable, which somehow made me more sympathetic to the board. I hope you're well, wherever you are. I hope you're using your freedom wisely. And I hope, someday, you can forgive me for how I treated you. I can't undo it, but I can acknowledge it was wrong. You were never trash. You were a woman in an impossible situation, dealing with impossible people. You survived. That takes strength. Be well, be. I read the note 3 times, then burned it on the beach that evening. Not out of anger, but out of closure. That chapter of my life was done. Victor was in prison. Berna was trying to rebuild. And I was here, in Bali, living a life they couldn't touch. But the story wasn't quite over. It was my assistant Wei-Yin who brought me the news, rushing into my office with her phone in hand. Layla, you need to see this. She showed me a post on an expat forum. Someone claiming to be Victor Whitmore, posting from prison, offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to my location. The post included my real name, my old name, and a description that was close enough to be concerning. My heart sank. He couldn't let it go. Even from prison, even after losing everything, he was still coming after me. "What are you going to do?" Wayne asked. I thought about running again. Argentina, maybe. Or Thailand. Somewhere he'd never think to look. But I was tired of running. Tired of looking over my shoulder. Tired of giving Victor Whitmore even one more second of power over my life. Instead, I called my lawyer in the States, a shark of a woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in exactly these kinds of situations. "He's harassing you from prison," she said after I explained. "That's actionable. We can get a restraining order, possibly even get charges filed. But Layla, you need to understand, if this goes to court, your whole story comes out. The affair, the money, everything. Will I go to jail?" "For what?" "He gave you the USB drive voluntarily. You didn't steal it. And the money, technically, he stole it first. You just transferred stolen property to your own accounts. It's a legal gray area, and honestly, I don't think any prosecutor would touch it. The optics are terrible. Rich man gives his mistress access to his secret accounts, then cries theft when she keeps it? No jury would convict you. But Victor could make my life hell with lawsuits. He could try. But he's broke and in prison. His legal options are extremely limited. And if he does come after you, we countersue for harassment and defamation. We make it so expensive and painful that he gives up." I thought about it for a long moment. "Do it. File the restraining order. And Patricia? Make it very, very public. I want everyone to know that Victor Whitmore is harassing a woman from prison because she wouldn't give back money he stole." She laughed. "I like the way you think." The restraining order made local news in Connecticut. Convicted fraudster Harris's former employee from prison. The story had everything: wealthy white guy, immigrant housekeeper, secret affair, stolen millions. Victor became a villain, and I became, weirdly, a folk hero. "Woman takes back what's hers" read one headline. "Housekeeper outsmarts millionaire boss" read another. My phone exploded with interview requests. Morning shows wanted me. Podcasts wanted me. Netflix wanted to option my story. I turned them all down. I didn't need fame. I didn't need validation. I just needed Victor to leave me alone. The restraining order worked. The forum post was deleted. The reward was rescinded. And Victor Whitmore finally, faded into the background of my life where he belonged. 2 years after arriving in Bali, I stood in front of a mirror in my villa, getting ready for a party I was hosting. A fundraiser for the local school, the one I'd been supporting. Wayne had organized everything, and half the expat community would be there. I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. She had sun-kissed skin and highlights in her hair. She wore a dress that actually fit, that showed off a body that had gotten strong from surfing and yoga. She smiled easily now, laughed often. She had friends, a business, a purpose. She looked nothing like the woman who'd been thrown out of the Whitmore mansion with her life in a garbage bag. "You ready, boss?" Wayne called from downstairs. "Almost." I took one last look in the mirror. "Hello, Layla," I said softly. "Nice to finally meet you." The party was perfect. Fairy lights in the trees, local musicians playing gamelan, tables full of food from the best warangs in Canggu. People laughed and danced and donated generously to the school. Carolyn gave a speech about community. The school's principal cried while thanking everyone. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching it all, and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. My phone buzzed. An email notification. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from an address I didn't recognize: vhwhitmore1971@protonmail.com. My stomach clenched. Victor. I opened it. Layla. I know you have a restraining order. I know I'm not supposed to contact you. This is the last time. I promise. I've had 2 years to think about what I did. To you, to Berna, to everyone I hurt. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. Too much, probably. I was wrong. About everything. I used you. I lied to you. And when you needed me to stand up for you, I threw you away like you were nothing. You deserved better. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. You weren't the villain in our story. I was. The money doesn't matter. It was stolen anyway. What matters is that I treated another human being like they were disposable, and that's something I have to live with for the rest of my life. I hope you're happy, wherever you are. I hope you've built something good with your freedom. And I hope that someday, somehow, you can find it in yourself to let go of the anger. Not for my sake, I don't deserve that. For yours. I'm sorry. Victor. I read the email 3 times. Then I deleted it. Not out of anger. Not even out of satisfaction. I deleted it because it didn't matter anymore. Victor's apology, his regret, his understanding, none of it changed what had happened. None of it gave me back the months I'd spent feeling worthless. None of it erased the way he'd stood there silent while his wife called me trash. But it also didn't take away what I'd built. The life, the business, the friendships, the peace. That was all mine. I'd created it from nothing, from less than nothing. And no apology or email or gesture could touch it. I walked back to the party, to the music and laughter and light. Wei-in handed me a glass of champagne. Carolyn made a joke that had everyone laughing. Someone asked me to dance, and I said yes. That night, after everyone had gone home and the villa was quiet again, I sat by the pool with a glass of wine and looked up at the stars. They were different here than in Connecticut, brighter somehow, like the universe was showing off. I thought about the woman I used to be. Layla Torres, who cleaned other people's houses and dreamed of being invisible because invisible meant safe. Who thought the best she could hope for was to be useful enough that people wouldn't hurt her. I thought about what she'd become. Layla Mendoza, who owned 3 properties and a business. Who had friends and plans and a future that belonged to no one but her. Who'd taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into the best thing. The journey from one to the other had been brutal. I'd been used, betrayed, humiliated, and thrown away. I'd stolen and lied and hurt people who'd hurt me first. I'd become someone I never thought I could be, done things I never thought I'd do. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Because here's what I learned: the world is full of Victor Whitmores. Men and women who see other people as tools, as means to an end, as things to be used and discarded. They count on you being too scared, too broken, too good to fight back. The secret is this: you don't have to be good. You just have to be smart. You have to watch and listen and wait for your moment. You have to be willing to take what's offered and refuse to give it back. You have to understand that survival isn't pretty, but it's necessary. And most importantly, you have to believe that you deserve better than the scraps they're willing to throw you. I finished my wine and went inside. Tomorrow, I had a meeting with a potential investor for a new property. Wayne's sister was coming for dinner. Carolyn wanted help planning a beach cleanup. Life, ordinary and extraordinary all at once, was waiting.